Hi, I'm Jim. Welcome to the Unbound Performance Podcast, where we explore the world of sports and performance mindset training.
And I'm Caroline. Each week we talk about the strategies, habits, and mental framework that help us to excel. Let's get into today's episode.
All right. I think youth sports is we've talked about it. I think we've had a couple of youth sports related episodes, but I think this is one that I never get sick of on. Having kids and being in this world that you and I are in and having been athletes ourselves and you having coached, I think this is just a never ending subject to discuss.
Yeah. I mean, it's when I saw this on The Athletic under their peak banner, it was, what's the best way to coach youth sports? We asked 3 former pros turned coaches. Obviously grabbed my attention quickly. And one of the athletes involved, I was familiar with what he was doing. Travis Snider, he had been a very highly touted prep baseball player, was drafted in the first round. And he he played, I think, 8 years in the major leagues, but was not a superstar. And he really struggled with other people's expectations of what he should be doing and who he should be, to the point he definitely thinks it was debilitating in terms of performance, finding his whole identity and sense of worth in these outcomes. And it was very much crippling to him. So he wound up suffering kind of a form of PTSD post-playing career, and ultimately formed 3A Athletics, which you can look them up, the number 3athletics.com.
Will you tilt your mic just a little bit more toward just the mic itself? There you go. Yep.
With Seth Taylor, who writes on these kind of topics, written a number of books. But it's interesting how they all talk about the same stuff. Drew Stanton and Matt Hasselbeck were mentioned in this article, former NFL quarterbacks, longtime NFL quarterbacks. And now they coach in the youth sports world as well. And one thing I thought was interesting, they're not trying to demonize anyone involved in this, but they are trying to explain some reasons why, where, when I was playing youth sports, there really wasn't any travel, anything. Yeah. And there was no social media. Nope. And I still put a tremendous amount of pressure on myself. And my parents put none on me.
Yep.
And one of their points is, okay, now take the normal pressure that you put on yourself and multiply it, where maybe parents with the idea of college scholarships, colleges costing what they do these days, that's real pressure. Social media, the advent of travel athletics, where you feel pressure to make a certain team and then to produce, or else maybe you're out the next year, and then coaches feeling like they need to get kids into college so that their organization can continue to promote the idea that they get kids into college.
Yep.
It's just a lot of added pressure that I don't think helps promote the idea of developing kids as people, making sure they're having fun on a consistent basis, and just becoming and learning how to play the sport, becoming better in every sense of it. And so I'm not, neither one of us is here to take pot shots at anyone involved in the process. My motivation behind talking about all of this is maybe provide some resources where people can learn how to just make this a better experience for everyone involved.
For everyone.
Social media is not going away. Costs of travel athletics are not going down.
Cost of college is not going.
Cost of college is going down.
Hopefully not. Probably not.
And so then, all right, those are all real.
What are we going to do?
Yeah. And so I guess that's where, for us, we like to provide some things to think about that make this a better, healthier environment for everybody concerned.
Yeah. I think I've said this on many episodes, that my kids both play soccer, because to me that's an easy early age throwing soccer. Yeah. And I played soccer through middle schoolish growing up, just I don't know. There was nothing else. I mean, I play basketball some too. I didn't play volleyball too much later, of course. But we signed our kids up for soccer, spring soccer last year, and my daughter is just not aggressive yet. She might be, but right now she is not interested in getting a stick in her foot and with a bunch of other feet trying to kick the same ball. As that you can tell, she's just like she like kicks it and at the same time she leans back. So it's one of those kind of like I want to, but I don't want to. And she played this year. She played in a league. Like last year, she played where everyone was hurt. It was only kindergartners, and this year was I think first and second graders. And so there were some bigger girls or more experienced girls that she was playing against. And she would always come home and be like, well, they're so rough and they're so aggressive and I just don't want to and this and that. So we talked about that and like, I encourage her to be aggressive because that's part of the sport, but not if she's fearful of it. Like I want her to be a good teammate. She got the teammate, like her award in the season was just the one I would hope she would get, which was like the good teammate, always supporting her team, this and that. So the other night we're talking and my son who wants to play soccer again, which again, I don't particularly hope that my kids play soccer, but if that's where they gravitate towards, then I'm gonna support that. But he wants to play soccer again, so my daughter said, like, well, when can I play again? And my husband instantly was like, you don't like soccer. And he's in like, okay, you clearly don't enjoy this, but she's young enough to where she likes to be with her friends. She like all of her friends are doing it. She thinks she likes soccer because right now it's just something to do. It's an activity. It's her friends are there, whatever. And so I was talking to him. I was like, stop telling her that she doesn't like soccer. Like, I'm with you. I agree. From outside looking in, it appears that this is not going to be something she's interested in. But approaching it a little bit differently and then not telling her that, like, we should write this off now, like, or just telling her that she doesn't like it, but going through and saying, well, soccer requires you to be a little bit aggressive. So if that's something you don't want to do, then maybe we'll stick with this, or maybe we can practice being more aggressive and realizing how that game works. So I think that was one of those shifts in my mind of we've talked before about when they're young, you just throw them in whatever because you want exposure to things and they're happy to just sign up for 9 weeks and go do it. And then when it's over, it's over. But I think that really trying to make it a good experience for the kid and not having the parents dictate if or when you do participate in a particular sport. We've talked a million times about like if you commit to doing it, we're going to ride out the whole season whether you like it or not. But I think just that trying to make it be something for your kid that either it is or it isn't, or that you want it to be for them, versus just letting them, like, I hope that if she burns out of soccer, which I think I hope she burns out of soccer, that she does it by her own and just says, you know what, I've done this a couple of years, I'm not enjoying this, soccer's over. I don't want to be the one to say, well, we're not playing soccer anymore because you don't like it, Well,
for sure. And plus they get used to it a little bit.
Yeah, it's her second season. Like it's
so. I mean, our experience with rec sports was generally quite positive. I mean, we still go to rec. We went last night to watch. We went Saturday to watch some town baseball, and everybody. I mean, it's a good. I mean, the pressure that those kids feel, it's because of the nature of competitive sports by and large. You don't have, I mean, there's parents who are like super into it and really hoping, the kid does well, which is natural. But I think when they get a bit older, I think there's a perception that the stakes increase, and especially if you are investing money, then all of a sudden you literally hear
you want like a return on your investment.
Return on investment, which was not something that I ever considered in terms of youth sports
or having kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's I just don't. But that's very much a thing, and we're going to pay this much money, but because there needs to be this outcome,
on the back end,
form of college opportunities and scholarships, whatever. And I think that approach is not the right approach, and the kids feel that pressure. I mean, I want kids to be aware that their parents are making sacrifices,
100%,
but not because that means you better get
in support of your kid,
somewhere.
Right?
And it needs to be instead like this is another way for our child to learn and grow and become a better person, a tougher person, to learn life lessons,
skills and
things, all that kind of thing.
Yep.
So this is our first year in the travel athletics world. We weren't looking for it and just kind of fell into it, but we feel very fortunate. It's Lynx Baseball, LYNX, right? Yep. And he's playing up a year, and it's hard.
Serious, yeah.
But that's one. Everybody that he's involved with is a good, solid person who they emphasize character development and as well as learning the game and also enjoying it. So I think that's, we purposely have put him in a very demanding environment. But, nobody's screaming obscenities at him while he's out on the mound trying to throw strikes or whatever. And he's doing great. I mean, it's because it's so demanding. That is the point.
Yeah.
And the point isn't so he signs a major league contract. Like, we have no idea what's coming in that in any of those regards. Like, if he wants to be striving for that, great. Got a lot of work to do.
If in 3 years he's over baseball.
Right. If he decides he wants to take up something else, which, I mean, I don't see it happening, but it's his thing. It's his life. And I think what we have to make sure is we don't do anything to contribute to him feeling burned out and like he wants to stop doing it. Yeah. And I think that's where pressure from parents to perform or coaches to perform in an unreasonable way really does. I mean, I saw we've all seen this statistic where is it 70% of 13-year-olds quit playing their sport by that age, because of all of these circumstances.
Burnout,
and I don't know, that reduces human activity to such a base level instead of what it can provide in terms of becoming more resilient and tougher and a better teammate. You've talked about it before in the business world where it's an advantage to hire someone who was an athlete because they know how to work in a team environment and know how to bounce back and overcome and things like that. That's all the stuff that we're supposed to be helping these kids learn.
Yeah.
And then along with, excellence in whatever their pursuit is, that's great. Plus, guess what? If they can't manage expectations and pressure, it doesn't matter how well they play the game.
Yeah.
They won't play it as well as they are capable of playing it, and they won't enjoy it, and they won't keep doing it. So creating an environment where thriving is allowed, encouraged, that's what we're supposed to be doing in the youth sports world.
Yeah.
And if they don't enjoy it when they're 13, well, guess what?
Probably
they're
never
never going to enjoy it. And so I think it's up to coaches, parents, everyone involved to make sure these kids have a really positive, meaningful experience in every sense.
Yeah, I liked in this, one of the key things was know what your value is as a coach, and the other was understand who your players are as people, which we've talked about both of those before. But under the knowing your value as a coach, talked about Matt Hasselbeck and talked about having non-negotiables. Like in his case, was no cursing, no putting health and safety above all else. There were a few of his examples. And when his son played, I guess he said he played for a former quarterback as well, and that coach's rule was no one was allowed to sit at a new table during a meal unless all other tables were full. So there's, if there's 10 seats at a table, it's not a table of 4, and someone else has got to fill all the other 6 first. That to me is one of those, as a parent looking for the environment I want my kid to be in. Even if she ends up playing volleyball, or my son plays, which is my sport, right? That would be really fun for me because I know it and I'm familiar, right? I know that environment. But it's not just about what sport they choose or how good they are, but what environment are we putting them in? And being aware of things to look for in coaches, in the other parents, in the other players in the team, and what type of atmosphere. So, you made a conscious choice to not do travel ball for a period of time when he probably could have played prior. But it was about that experience and the environment that you're going to place him in when the time is right and what you want him to get out of it. So I thought that was just a really good example of having someone who was making this, no table of 10, it's not a table of 4, it's a table of 10 until it's full, then you move on. That's not not a sports thing,
cool example,
right? That's not a play on the field. That's not a physical thing. That is a team building, character building, social skills building rule for his team that whether or not any of those kids ever go on to play a higher level or play ever again have now learned this skill to sit at a table with whoever, make conversation, bond, face adversity, and disagree, whatever that is. I think to me that was so huge. I liked that one a lot. The next was understanding who your players are as people, which we have talked about a whole lot about coaching. I think this example was there were a lot of mental mistakes happening on the offensive line. When he approached his offensive line coach, he suggested they simplify a few things. The coach, who was also a math teacher at the school, replied, no, that's not the issue. This is one of the smartest kids I teach. He's capable. This is just a teenage boy having a focus problem. That's when Hasselbeck began to understand the strong link between learning the little things about his athletes and improving their play. So he said, hey, we know this guy struggles learning. Let's make his menu a little smaller so we can do less better. It'll help him succeed. He's got enough on his plate. I think that sometimes doing less is better. And just understanding how people think when people are overwhelmed and being able to identify those little signs in people. And we tend to be able to do that with our family and people that we live with for a long period of time and how to pick up the little cues of things. But in a coaching player relationship where your goal is to help fulfill them as more and build them as more than just an athlete. But if you want their sports experience and their success and their performance to be as good as it can be, being able to tap into those non-sports related aspects and characteristics of that player is massively important.
Well, and knowing how much they impact performance, not just in their sport, but down the line. And I think then it's incumbent upon us as coaches to become the kind of coaches that parents feel comfortable turning their children over to. And that's where Hasselbeck talked in there about even writing down some goals and philosophy, some things that are non-negotiable. You just mentioned, who am I as a coach, and what am I trying to accomplish? And I think that's really important. That's where we didn't go looking for a travel experience. We were at DBAT in Wake Forest, and they had someone listed as a pitching instructor. We signed him up. He had pitched for the Dodgers and was a scout for the Dodgers. We didn't know he ran a travel organization.
Just kind of fell into it that way.
But watching him work with my son, I just loved it.
Yeah.
His name's John Link. And when I go watch him give pitching instruction, I just sit there and kind of grin the whole time. That we feel very blessed that we have someone who is eminently qualified, that is investing in our child and cares about our son, and not just in the performance world only, but all of it. All of it is just so connected that in making sure we're training and raising kids who are fully formed across the board, not just in whatever their sport is. But so when I had several conversations with the coach, but so we probably earlier than I would have anticipated.
Sure.
But we also felt like we just struck gold. I know just about a week or so ago, I was in there. Well, all these Lynx baseball players had hitting practice at DBAT, and I was talking to one of the other dads, and he was just kind of laughing at our experience. He says, that just doesn't happen, where you just kind of fall into it. Maybe we manifested it. I don't know. But I was not interested in throwing him into a situation where he was just going to be used and to win a trophy at age 10 or whatever. Didn't matter. But this was, I don't know, it just checked every box. And I know I had one of the former rec parents who found out we had jumped into this, and she kind of thought I had surrendered or something. I said, no, it's just that this organization, by every metric that I can apply, checks all the boxes, and they do it the right way. I mean, I go watch them when they practice, and those are people I want my kid around.
Yeah.
And So we feel very fortunate, because I mean, at every turn, people just, I don't know, it's easy to take your eye off the ball and not maintain like adherence to your mission and your values as an organization. Sometimes they don't even think far enough ahead to have any.
Right.
But all like even like a pursuit of excellence. Like John Link was a pitcher, but I mean he hit in college. But there's not. He works. I'm playing first base with my son. I don't know if there's anything about how to play baseball that he isn't fully
Really
versed
into
in,
that,
because he has worked to learn everything about this whole game. And he's a really good example, I think, for coaches. Like that's what you want to do.
Yep.
Like I don't want to not know. And I sure don't want to just have my own sense of meaning and worth wrapped up in performance outcomes, which it wasn't the complete, but it was real.
Yeah.
Like, and that, especially more successful, it was really real. But I think just remembering why we're doing this in the first place, at whatever level it is. It doesn't matter. Like we were lucky in the rec world. Like we had just great guys who, were good for our kid to be around too.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, I don't know, if you're doing it, it matters. It doesn't, if you're doing it as a volunteer in a rec setting or at a middle school setting, it matters.
Yep.
And you should be trying to bring it the best you can.
Yeah.
And for all the right reasons.
Yeah, with our soccer team this year was our first time doing like the YMCA versus just the kids co-ed kind of thing. And, our coach was the grandmother of one of the players. And I couldn't tell what their family situation was. Maybe she may be raising this first grader. I don't know. And I don't know that she knew a whole lot about soccer. But the girls thought she was so sweet and so kind. And, at first grade soccer, like I'm not worried that she's the fastest in the field or she can score the goals. Like, they ran some drills at practice, but she made the girls feel so welcomed and good and happy. If someone got a boo-boo, like it was at that age, like they just want someone who is going to sort of get on their level with them. And sometimes my husband was like, she was screaming things across the field. My husband's like, oh my God, like, just very grandmotherly type things you would yell to a first grader in support of their soccer. But at this age and this skill level, like she was giving them what it was that they needed. And to me, that's as much as I can ask for. I don't think you and I would be sitting here 20 years later if I had a shitty experience with you as my coach. And I know I'm not the only former player you maintain a relationship with that I think it just speaks to that how important it is, for that 4 years or however many years you have a player as your athlete. A lot of times it doesn't have to be limited to that. It doesn't have to be limited to the sport. It doesn't have to be limited to a time period. It can go very much beyond. And I think the people who view their role as a coach that way, immeasurable.
Well, I think that's
return on investment, if you will.
Nice. Caring about the player as a person that's whatever the secret sauce or whatever. And I don't care what it is you're doing, like if it's athletics or business or anything else. And, if you're connecting on a human level, then that's pretty foundational. Yeah. And if it's not there, then
what
everybody realizes right away this is just a transactional and not going to mean that much to me moving forward. Yeah. And plus, for me, it's just extremely unfulfilling to take that approach. So that's where we're lucky, like where my daughter plays athletics and son. They're really good people, the kind of people you want your kids around. And she has a meaningful experience as a result. And I think that's it can happen. I think travel sports, we have this idea that it's just automatically going to be terrible in so many ways. And I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
Like, I've been associated with, travel organizations. That was not the case.
Yep.
So I think you just need to keep reminding yourself why you're doing this and hold fast to those foundational principles and your mission, why you got into this in the first place. And then people know, like, then you don't have to sacrifice those.
Yeah.
You double down on who you are and why you're doing this.
And you'll attract the right people that way too.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I've heard you many times talk about, your son's coach in baseball, and that guy is not going to need to necessarily do a bunch of advertising to recruit kids for his teams. Like the parents who have experience like you do are going to tell other parents, and that tends at being more of a testimony than as a marketing strategy where you need to sell yourself. Like if he continues that process, it's going to be a very natural sort of organic way of growing his teams and attracting the people that want that same experience and are going to probably be similar in mindset to you and your kids and, the way you guys view that. So I think
that was one of the, like, just at all the different events where I had lots of teams together talking to parents, and they're all singing the same tune about this. And it was great. So we're very thankful, but I think with your next move, you can decide, like, no, we're going to be this kind of place.
Yeah.
We're going to treat people this way. And it can be a good, healthy, pure environment where kids are allowed to become everything that they're capable of becoming.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unbound Performance Podcast.
Your support helps us continue to build our community. If you're enjoying this content, please like, subscribe, and share.